Isabella had never been the kind of girl who believed in fairy tales. Love, to her, was something that belonged to movies, not to the real, sharp-edged world she lived in. She was a first-year literature student at Kingsley University, shy and self-contained, with a heart still tender from a breakup that had ended before it ever truly began. Her days were quiet lectures, coffee, long walks beneath the oak trees that lined the campus courtyard. And then, one unremarkable Tuesday morning, everything changed. He appeared at the back of the lecture hall, a tall boy with messy hair, wearing a navy hoodie and a grin that seemed like he didn't quite take life too seriously. His name was Ethan. He was late, and the professor gave him a disapproving glance, but he only smiled in return before slipping into the empty seat beside her. "Sorry," he whispered, as his shoulder brushed hers. "It's fine," she murmured back, barely glancing at him. But her heart, annoyingly, beat faster. Over the next hour, Isabella tried to focus on Shakespeare, but her mind betrayed her. She caught herself noticing little things: how his pen whirled effortlessly between his fingers, the way he leaned forward when something caught his attention, and that faint dimple in his cheek whenever he smiled. She told herself it was nothing, just a random seatmate, nothing more. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. When class ended, she gathered her books quickly, hoping to escape before awkward small talk could begin. But Ethan was faster. "Hey, you're in my group for the semester project, right?" She blinked. "Yeah, I think so." He smiled wider. "Perfect. Then we should probably talk about it." "Coffee?" Isabella hesitated. Normally, she'd say number, but something in his easy tone made it difficult to refuse. "Sure," she said finally, surprising herself. That afternoon, they sat in the corner of a small cafe tilde copyright just off campus, papers scattered across the table between them. What began as a project meeting turned into laughter, stories, and that kind of effortless conversation that made time disappear. Ethan told her about his passion for photography, his dream of traveling the world, his childhood growing up near the ocean. Isabella found herself opening up in ways she rarely did, telling him about her love for poetry, her fear of not being enough, her quiet wish to someday publish a novel. "You will," he said, so simply, as if her dreams were already reality. When she got back to her dorm that evening, she couldn't stop smiling. She didn't know why. Or maybe she did. Over the next few weeks, they became inseparable. Study sessions turned into long walks by the river. Group meetings turned into late-night phone calls. Isabella started looking forward to mornings, because she knew she'd see him sitting in that same seat beside her, his smile waiting. One evening, after a long day of classes, Ethan suggested they go for a walk. The sky was painted in hues of gold and pink, the air crisp with the promise of autumn. They walked without saying much, their shoulders brushing, the silence between them comfortable. At the old stone bridge that overlooked the water, he stopped. "You know," he said softly, "I've been thinking about something." She looked up, her heart doing that strange flutter again. "What?" He hesitated, his eyes searching hers. "That maybe meeting you wasn't just random. Maybe it was supposed to happen." Her breath caught. "I like you, Isabella," he said finally, his voice quiet but certain. "More than I should." The world seemed to blur around her. The sound of the river faded, the leaves, the fading sun, all of it dimmed until there was only him. She wanted to speak, to say something back, but words failed her. Instead, she smiled. And in that smile, he found his answer. From that day on, everything changed. They became the couple everyone noticed on campus, the quiet bookish girl and the boy with the easy laugh. They studied together, ate together, dreamed together. Isabella had never felt so alive. Love, she realized, wasn't the grand, dramatic thing she'd always imagined it up. It was in the small moments, the shared coffees, the late-night talks, the warmth of his hand in hers. But love, as life often proves, isn't without its storms. It started in December. Ethan became distant, missing calls, canceling plans. Isabella tried to brush it off. He said he was busy with exams and family issues, but she could feel something shifting, a quiet drift that she didn't know how to stop. One night, after waiting an hour for him at the Café Tilde Copyright where they first met, she finally saw him walking down the street. He wasn't alone. A girl was beside him, laughing, her hand brushing his arm. Isabella froze. He saw her before she could leave. Their eyes met. His expression faltered. "Isabella," he began. But she shook her head, tears already forming. "It's okay," she whispered. "You don't have to explain." And she walked away. The weeks that followed were gray. She avoided the places they'd gone, deleted his messages without reading them. In lectures, his seat beside her stayed empty. She told herself she was fine, that she'd been foolish to believe in something so fragile. But heartbreak has a way of lingering, like a bruise that never quite fades. It was spring when she saw him again. He was standing beneath the cherry blossoms, camera in hand, sunlight catching in his hair. For a moment, it was as if time hadn't passed at all. He looked up and smiled attentive, unsure. She could have ignored him, but instead, she walked closer. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey." He took a deep breath. "About what happened I messed up. That girl, a broken bar, she was just a friend from high school. I should have told you. I just didn't want you to worry." She looked away. "You still disappeared, Ethan. You left without saying anything." "I know." His voice cracked slightly. "I was scared. I didn't know how to deal with how much you meant to me." Isabella laughed softly, shaking her head. "That's not an excuse." "No," he said, "but it's the truth." They stood there in silence, petals falling around them like snow. Then, slowly, she looked up at him again. "I don't know if I can just forget," she said. "I'm not asking you to forget," he said gently. "I'm asking for a chance to make it right." There was something in his eyes, a raw, honest, familiar. The boy she'd fallen for was still there, still waiting. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she sighed. "One coffee," she said quietly. "That's all." His smile broke through like sunlight. "I'll take it." They went back to that same Café Tilde Copyright, the same corner table, the same soft laughter. And though things weren't exactly as before, something new began to take root, something quieter, steadier, built not on perfection but on understanding. Over the next months, they rebuilt what had been broken, slowly, carefully. There were awkward silences, hesitant glances, moments of doubt but also laughter, apologies, and trust reborn. By the time graduation arrived, they stood side by side, looking out over the crowd of caps and gowns. The sun dipped low behind the campus towers, casting long shadows over the grass. "Remember when you said you didn't believe in fairy tales?" Ethan asked. She smiled, eyes glistening. "Maybe I was wrong." He reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining. "Maybe this is ours." Years later, when Isabella published her first book, a novel about love, forgiveness, and the courage to begin again, as she dedicated it simply, "For the boy who taught me that love is not found in perfection, but in persistence." And somewhere, on a quiet afternoon, in that same Café Tilde Copyright where it all began, Ethan sat by the window, flipping through the pages, smiling softly. Because some stories don't end, they just keep finding new ways to begin again.